Hey guys, so today I have probably the most interesting video that I've ever created about Qubic or just about any subject. And I think this is going to be really interesting for people even outside of the Qubic community. And I might make my next video, just a FYI, the next video I make might be related to this, but not specifically to Qubic as well. But this has to do with the ancient Bitcoin whale that sold a lot of Bitcoin this year, and in space of only a couple of weeks through Galaxy Digital sold 80,000 Bitcoin that I think was worth something like $9 billion. And I think that I can prove in this video that whale was very, very likely the Qubic creator, CfB. Even if you don't accept that proof, there's so much more interesting stuff that'll be in this video about the whole mystery behind that 80,000 Bitcoin that was sold and the things that we know and the impact this is probably going to have on crypto in the very near future. A lot of you probably aren't aware of this stuff, but it is scary, scary stuff if you're not someone who believes that CFB owns that Bitcoin, because well, the ramifications for this are probably going to be huge. So I'll explain all this. Let's get into it. So yeah, guys. So to kind of preamble on this a bit, and because I'm going to explain the whole story of this 80,000 Bitcoin that was sold and bigger picture, and I'm going to explain how I think it links to CFB. But even if you're not interested in the CFB thing, just the story is interesting. So stick around for that part, and I'll just show you why I think that there's a strong chance that it is CFB. So firstly, you've got anytime that you're trying to solve anything, you want to see, well, what did the actual person who you're trying to accuse of a crime or whatever way you want to put it, what did they actually say themselves? Well, CFB has continuously mentioned in the past that he owns 800,000 Bitcoin. Now, CFB, if you follow the evidence with him, I mean, there's a strong chance that he is Satoshi Nakamoto, but if he's not, there's a really high chance that he was a very, very early Bitcoin miner. I mean, I think that's pretty obvious to anyone that looks into the data. Back in the day, when you mined one Bitcoin block, which was pretty easy to do because there was very little competition, you could get 50 Bitcoin. And just by pressing a Bitcoin faucet every day, I think you could get something like 10 Bitcoin. So it was really plausible for people back in the day to get something like 800,000 Bitcoin. So CFB, I think it's definitely possible that he could have 800,000 Bitcoin. So I tend to believe him on this statement. He's very consistent with saying it, but who knows? We don't know for a fact. He's consistently as well mentions that, that he has enough money to live for the next 1,000 years and so on, that he's just in this for legacy. He's always talking about that he has a lot of money. He said that, he's catching up on Elon Musk as being one of the richest people in the world in the past. So this guy is very, you have to take everything CFB says with a pinch of salt because he talks a lot of rubbish, but he's also very consistent about having this 800,000 Bitcoin. Then he said that I can instantly remove 4 zeros in the current price, alluding to the fact that he could get, make a big change to Qubic. The date that he said that on was the 24th of July this year. That's really interesting because that's around the time that those Bitcoin were sold, same month, just right after. So remember that. They said, start thinking that until all those 400,000 Bitcoin are sold, altcoin season will be postponed. And he said that very recently, that he thinks all that 400K is going to have to be sold. And then he said, should Bitcoins be afraid then? And he said, yes, 400,000 Bitcoin will be dumped in 2025. Now, he put troll face in there, but he said this last year, really, really importantly. Right at the end of last year, he said that 400,000 Bitcoin are going to be dumped in this year. And he was very adamant about the fact that he was going to sell Bitcoin this year. Again, take that with a pinch of salt, but we've got this guy talking about holding that amount of Bitcoin and selling that amount of Bitcoin before those Bitcoin whales sold it this year. Now, that is interesting. So then if we move on, so here's the story. So through Galaxy Digital, an early Bitcoin investor sold 800,000 Bitcoin in what the digital asset company described as one of the largest notional transactions in crypto history. This happened last July, by the way. Though details regarding the date and execution price were not disclosed. We do know, though, that it was July last year. I think it was done in phases. But it started early July last year. Galaxy Digital's disclosure of the sale first appeared on PR Newswire late Friday, followed by a post on the company's official blog about 30 minutes later. Cointelegraph reached out to Galaxy Digital for further details on the transaction, and although the company declined to comment further, they did confirm that the authenticity of the press release. Galaxy did not reveal the client's identity. Okay, here's the important thing. So we know Galaxy Digital's some client came to Galaxy Digital. Galaxy Digital sold the Bitcoin for them. They didn't reveal the client's identity, but stated that the transaction was part of the investor's broader real estate planning strategy. So we know that this 80,000 was sold by one person or one entity. I'm thinking that CfB, I'll explain why I think that, but it could have been anyone else. Most likely this person was also Satoshi, I'm thinking. But, again, I'm just hypothesizing there. The announcement came on a day of heightened volatility for Bitcoin, the price briefly dipping below 115,000, according to Cointelegraph. Data from Look On Chain indicates several large transactions for Galaxy Digital throughout today, totaling nearly 30,000 Bitcoin, with most of the funds sent directly to exchanges. So they basically went and started slowly but surely sending all this money to these Bitcoin exchanges and selling them, and a big amount came in that day. So that's the pre-story. Someone took this Bitcoin from ancient wallets that are woke, moved it to Galaxy Digital, and these were Satoshi era wallets. So the wallets came from around, I think, 2011. So they were very, very old Bitcoin wallets. And then the investor unlocked those wallets, moved the tokens over to Galaxy Digital, and then Galaxy Digital sold them. And I think it was 9 billion or something like that they sold them for. Now, here's the really interesting thing. Before this happened, before these ancient wallets awoke, only a few days before them, some messages were sent to these wallets. And not just these wallets, and I'll explain that in a second a bit more, but they were sent to these wallets. And the wallets said, notice to owner, and they said that this digital wallet appears to be lost or abandoned. Our client has entered into constructive possession of it and is attempting to determine whether it has a good faith owner. The owner is given 90 days to prove control. If the owner does not respond after the deadline, the wallet will be considered abandoned and may be presented to a court as evidence of renunciation or similar legal consequence. So this happened through Solomon Brothers. So this client who sold the Bitcoin through these websites, a few days before they started moving this Bitcoin, they started sending out this notice to hundreds of thousands of ancient Bitcoin wallets. And they did it through a legal firm called the Solomon Brothers. So this was a client who worked with a legal company to send out this legal notice to all these Bitcoin wallets. And then it said, similar thing again, said notice to owner. This was in something called the OP return message. OP return message is going to be important in this video, but OP return can mean a lot of things. But basically, I just want you to understand that it means sending a message from one wallet to another wallet, and it costs a little bit of Bitcoin to do that. So the owner, and you can decide how much Bitcoin. That's an important point. You can decide how much Bitcoin it costs. The owner is providing 90 days to respond to this notice. So 90 days people have to respond to this notice. And if they don't, then this person who Solomon Brothers are representing will take possession of this wallet and its contents. Now, here's an important point. Not abandon, prove it by on-chain transaction using the private key by September the 30th. So these wallet owners only have till September the 30th to prove ownership of these wallets, or this person says that they're going to take control of them. So they obviously believe that they've got a way that they can hack these wallets. Now, first link to CfB in my mind is that he's built an AI. Does he think that AI can hack those wallets? I don't know. But this person obviously believes that they can take control of the contents of these wallets. And they're giving the person till September the 30th. And apparently it fits under some law of abandoned property if someone doesn't claim ownership. And some people have claimed ownership already. If no response is received, the digital wallets and their contents will be considered to be confirmed as abandoned. So September the 30th, and I believe it's 5th of October that they will take possession of the wallets by. So this is just about to happen really, really soon. So this Solomon Brothers initiative targeted 113,000, basically 114,000 Bitcoin wallets it deemed abandoned by embedding OP return messages and transactions to these addresses. These messages directed recipients to a website where they were given 90 days to prove ownership, either by making on-chain transaction or submitting personal identification documents. Notably, the one FEEX wallet associated with the Mt. Gox attacks, holding approximately 80,000 Bitcoin, was among the high-profile addresses targeted. The initiative sparked debate within cryptocurrency. Last line doesn't matter. But as we can see, one of these wallets alone holds 80,000 Bitcoin, a really famous wallet. These 100,000 wallets overall probably hold at least, I would say, about 10% of the total supply of Bitcoin, probably more. And very few people have come forward to claim these abandoned wallets. Most of them, some of them are definitely Satoshi wallets. Most of them are probably Satoshi wallets. So you're probably talking about millions and millions of Bitcoin are in these addresses, and this person is targeting them as legally abandoned. And apparently there's some small security flaw in these old wallets, and they think they can take control of them. Now imagine, you probably didn't know that, because I didn't know that for a long time, but imagine what a person can do to the whole crypto market if they get millions of Bitcoin to start dumping it on the market. You might be about to see the biggest crash in crypto history about to happen if this really occurs. So anyway, to give you more context in this, because this gets so interesting. So bear in mind that all these, because I really want to make this clear, all these legal notices were sent before the person sent the 80,000 Bitcoin. So it's really clear that, and the person sent those notices then to the owners of these wallets, these 80,000, the owners of the 80,000 Bitcoin. So it's really clear that the person who sent these notices, I was working with Solomon Brothers, is the same person that sold these 80,000 Bitcoin through Galaxy Digital. So that's one thing that I want you to get. So now let's dig into this a bit more. So this is an article from Binance about this 80,000 Bitcoin. It says something worrying about the 80,000 Bitcoin that recently moved from old wallets. Hidden messages are a warning about a major disaster for Bitcoin. Looks like whoever moved them planned this for years. You've probably seen the news about the 80,000 Bitcoin that suddenly moved from wallets thought to be lost since 2011. So, really ancient wallets. There's a lot behind these transfers that's worrying, and few people have really noticed it yet. So let's get into this further. This is just a screenshot of all the whale wallets that we're selling. First, all the wallets involved are identical. They all use the old P2P-KH standard from Bitcoin's early days, something that apparently is a lot more easily hackable than the current standard that Bitcoin wallets use. Each one holds exactly 10,000 Bitcoin and had no outgoing transactions since 2011. This strongly suggests they all came from the same owner. So holding exactly 10k Bitcoin and all came from the same owner. Or probably all came from the same owner. That's the ones that sold. What's really strange are the hidden OP return messages sent just before the wallets were drained. Take this address, they said, has 63 transactions in total, but before July 1st, it never received an OP return. The first OP returns of the first message that it received came on July 1st, 4 days before the wallet was emptied. It says, legal notice, we have taken possession of this wallet and its contents. So this first OP return message said, we've taken possession of this wallet, while these messages that the Solomon Brothers sent out then said, we will take control of these other wallets in September, late September, early October. So these ones apparently were taken control of at this time. At that point, it just looked like meaningless legal fluff. No one was taking this message seriously. 25 minutes later, a second OP return hit the same address. Not abandoned, prove it by an on-chain transaction using a private key by September the 30th. And they said, I'm convinced by sending it, even though he pretends it's a challenge for someone else. They convinced the same person to sending it anyway. But then, another odd detail. One of the destination addresses contains the word fuck basically in it. That's not a coincidence. It could be a coincidence, but it's probably not. Generating a Bitcoin address with 4 custom characters takes huge computing power and about 12 million tries or a few minutes with a high-end machine. So one of these addresses was very strange and seemed to contain the word fuck, like there was a secret code hidden in one of these messages. Back to that legal front. It was deployed 24 hours before the Bitcoin moved. So that legal message was sent 24 hours before the 80,000 Bitcoin was moved. Now that is mind-blowing. So somebody we'll get into it a bit more, but was signaling we're going to do something, and then they did it. And updated just hours before the transfer to add a clause allowing a representative to claim the funds on the owner's behalf, supposedly to protect their identity. Again, this shows that everything was planned down to the last detail. It's a mix of legal maneuvering and artistic messaging. The person behind this clearly wants to tell us something. One thing's certain, this is far from over. So I think this is a really important sentence. It's legal maneuvering, but artistic messaging. Now, I want to dig into CfB in a second, because I think that's interesting, is that CfB is someone that's interested in artistic messaging and hiding the truth in plain sight. And if you watch any of my videos, you'll know about that. So Eric Chanel's then on X just posted this: Bitcoin mystery, 10,000 Bitcoin transfer drama unfolds. This was, I think, around the time the first 10,000 was sent, and they said that on June 30th, they received a legal notice about this and said that they've taken possession. Then they said not abandon, prove it with this. And then they sent a notice to the owner with a link to a website address that had all the legal documentation in there and showed that Solomon Brothers were representing them legally. And then on July 4th, it just sent these numbers: 4, 8, 15, 16, 23, 42, which just seemed interesting or didn't mean anything, but actually they were the numbers our TV show lost, which is very strange. And then 37 minutes after receiving the lost numbers, the 10K Bitcoin holder transferred everything out. Now, those lost numbers, we'll get into that in a bit more detail as we go on here. But here's where I want to talk about. So we've got now someone having the word fuck in an address. We've got Binance talking about how this seemed to be something legal, but also artistic messaging. And then, who do we know does stuff like this? Well, if we look at one of the earliest Bitcoin addresses ever created, it was created 10 days after Bitcoin was Genesis block was launched, was the one with one CfB, a clearly customized address that links to CfB, the creator of Qubic. Then we also had 6 days after Bitcoin's creation, the 15 Qubic address, which that 15, if we use base 58, which was something that was created by Satoshi, the 15th capital letter in the base 58 coding is Q, because the letters I and O, I'm pretty sure it is, I and O don't appear in Satoshi's base 58. So the 15th capital letter base 58 is Q. So that address started with the letter Qubic. So we had, in the first 10 days of Bitcoin's creation, we had an address with Qubic in the name, and we had an address with one CfB in the name. And then we know that CfB created these sort of vanity addresses, they're called, because one of the first, or an early Bitcoin address that was created by BCNex had one BCN at the start. And of course, BCNex was the creator of the project called NXT, and they turned out to be Sergey Ivancheglo or Come From Beyond. So this guy loves hiding the truth in plain sight in an artistic sense. That's what I want to get at with that. Also, not going to dig into this in crazy detail, but I just want to show that this guy seems to be interested in hiding the truth in plain sight. I know sometimes I doubt whether it is true. I don't know, but there's a whole thing here with gematria, and it's got to do with reducing words down to its digital roots in number form. So if we put Bitcoin into a gematria calculator, it gives us back the number 72, 36, 117, and 45. If you add 7 and 2 together, you get 9. If you add 3 and 6 together, you get 9. If you add 1 and 1 and 7 together, you get 9. And if you add 4 and 5 together, you get 9. 9 is a really important number. If you're interested in Nikola Tesla, just look into why 9 is an important number, but it's basically got to do with that it's a number that represents completion of a cycle it also is a number that ties nearly everything together. Like if you take the angles of a circle, there's a 45 degrees, 45 degrees. 4 and 5 is 9, 360 degrees is the full circle, 3 and 6 is 9, 180 is half circle, 1 and 8 is 9, and you basically can do that for any angle of a triangle. They always equal up to 9. So I won't get into it in detail. You can look up Nikola Tesla and the math of 9, and I'm sure you'll find loads of videos about it. So we see Bitcoin adds up to 9s. We see the name come from beyond. Then 1 plus 5 plus 3 equals 9. 7 plus 2 equals 9. 2 plus 2 plus 5 equals 9. 6 plus 3 equals 9. And then many names that were linked to Bitcoin and come from beyond have the same things. So Nakamoto equals all 9s. James A. Donald, the first person to ever comment on the Bitcoin white paper, all 9s. Jackulus, someone that claimed to be Bitcoin back in the day, all 9s. Van Saberhagen, the creator of Monero, who many of us believe is also CfB, all 9s. Next, the name of CfB's first project that we know of they created is all 9s. BC Next, so the alias they used while creating those projects, all 9s. IOTA, the first project they created under his name, Sergey Ivancheglo, all 9s. My Last Match, the first game that he's created on the Qubic network, all 9s. Garth, which is garden in Latin or something like that. AI Garth is the name of a project he's created on Qubic, so Garth, all 9s. Artificial Intelligence Garden, which is AI Garth's English translation, all 9s. Valis, a project that I'm suspicious that he created, all 9s. And Qubic CfB equals all 9s. And then I know that, look, I don't care if you don't believe that bit. I just want to make that point because the number 9 is really, really interesting in all this. And I think it might elude some information. It's just worth looking at. You don't have to believe it. It's not the most important part of this whole video, but it's just something I think that shows this guy might hide the truth in plain sight. You don't need to believe that, but if you understand that he hid his initials at the start of one of the first Bitcoin addresses, he hid the name Qubic at the start of one of the first Bitcoin addresses. He hid his initials at the start of NEXT's first, one of its first addresses. And then if you just take the initial CFB, which he's been using since the year 2000, CFB flips around, rotate it and flip it, and it says Bitcoin, which is just interesting. Again, don't have to believe it, but it appears that this guy, the point I'm trying to make here is it appears this guy is interested in hiding the truth in plain sight. I'm going to explain how, and the person who moved these Bitcoin, worked with Galaxy Digital and Solomon Brothers, also seems interested in hiding the truth in plain sight. So I just want you to match those two things together. You don't have to believe any of the rest, but just that it seems like this guy is the sort of person that would be interested in hiding the truth in plain sight, and that obviously the Galaxy Digital and Solomon Brothers person is interested in some sort of thing with these lost numbers and stuff. So yeah, the lost numbers. So why are they interesting? So if you ever watched the show Lost, it was a great show for a certain amount of time. And it had these numbers that were 4, 8, 15, 16, 23, 42 that were really mysterious. And they're central to the TV show Lost. These numbers are a recurring motive throughout the series, originating from a transmission received by a Navy listening post and later used by character Hurley to win the lottery. They're tied to the island's mysterious nature, representing fate and appearing on things like a hatch, computer, or lighthouse as candidates to protect the island. So these numbers just appeared and appeared and appeared and appeared and reappeared. And if you add all those numbers together, you get the number 108. And then if you reduce this to its digital root, by the way, reducing numbers to their digital root, this isn't something I'm making up. This is something that, great minds have been doing for a long time. So it's not me making this up. This is something that's been done by great minds for a long time. But these numbers equal 108. If you reduce 108 to its digital root, that's 1 plus 0 plus 8, which is 9. So we have a 9 again, kind of like we had with these numbers. So when we take those lost numbers, so this guy Desmond, what he had to do was enter these numbers into a computer every day. And the reason that he had to do it was to prevent a global disaster from occurring. So now think about, if we go back here to this Solomon Brothers messages that were being sent to these Bitcoin wallets before all the stuff kicked off. They sent a message with the lost numbers in them. And these numbers were used to prevent a global disaster. And now the same group of messages are being used to target 114,000 other Bitcoin wallets. So is this preambling for a global disaster about to occur? It might be. So then just some interesting small points I think are worth noticing. So this was from another, so just so you know that I'm not the only person suggesting this was written by another article was written about this topic. They said the most intriguing discovery remains to come in Lost, where Desmond reveals the crucial importance of these numbers, which must be entered every 108 minutes to save the world. So the numbers had to be entered every 108 minutes, and the equals 108 as well, which again, 1 + 0 + 8, if you put it down to its digital root, is the number 9. And it was first broadcast on ABC on October 5th, 2005. Which again is very interesting. And October 5th is the date that is the eventual deadline for all of this, got to do with the takeover of these Bitcoin wallets. So exactly 20 years later than the Bitcoin deadline. So the Bitcoin deadline comes 20 years exactly after this date. This temporal coincidence is statistically impossible. It confirms that the operation was conceived as a total narrative work. So someone is doing a work of art here. Like, there's a plan here going on, is basically what this article is saying, where every detail has meaning. The entity behind the operation does not simply perform a technical exploit, it signs a cryptographic performance of unparalleled sophistication. I mean, mind-blowing. Mind-blowing. And then I just said, notes that the date of these movements was the 4th of July and the deadline is the 5th of October. 4 + 5 = 9. Again, don't have to believe the thing of the nines, but it's hard to deny that it's interesting that these numbers keep adding up to 9. So then let's talk about the Qubic quorum. So I've gone off onto another topic, but this is really important in a second. So Qubic's quorum, which is the backbone of how Qubic exists. I won't explain the quorum in great detail, but you can go through my channel and see other things about the quorum. But it's an hour-long video to talk about the quorum. But the quorum consists of 676 specialized nodes called computers. Nothing else really matters here. I won't go into anything else in detail, but just that number 676 is the whole backbone of how Qubic works. So when these lost numbers were sent, so the messages that were sent with them, they're called OP return messages. These were sent, so those 8 wallets with 10,000 Bitcoin in them, and that was the 80,000 that were sold through Galaxy Digital. 3 of those wallets got the lost number sent to them, so only 3 got them sent to them. Each of those wallets, we can look at the transactions in them. So you can set your Bitcoin fee to send one of these messages, and the Bitcoin fee was set to 676. So someone manually set this to 676. Now, bearing in mind, the number of members of the Qubic quorum is 676. So think about this. We've got this guy, CfB, who right at the start of this video, we said a year ago was talking about having 800,000 Bitcoin and saying that they're going to sell 400,000. At the end of the month where these Bitcoin were sold, they said that they could remove 4 zeros from current price. I actually forgot to put in a screenshot here as well. Someone, when those 80,000 were sold, he commented and just said, it's just the beginning. He also put that comment in, and I should have screenshotted that. But this guy, he was talking about the year before any of these coins were sold. Then, right after they're sold, he says, I can remove 4 zeros from the current price of Qubic he's talking about. He also said it was just the beginning. We can show that he's interested in hiding the truth in plain sight. And many other articles agree with me that this guy, so this is hiding the truth in plain sight, that whoever's selling these Bitcoin is interested in some kind of artistic brand narrative that they're creating. And then we see that CfB's newest project that he says is his baby, the main project he always wants created, has 676 computers in it. So the backbone of it is built around the number 676. And then the fee for that transaction with the lost numbers is set at 676. So look, the next transaction, 676. So for all the transactions where they sent the message with the lost numbers, they're all set to 676 as a fee. And then we go down here in the inputs and outputs section and we see the lost numbers in there, 676. And then we see, so that recently as well, this whale has, or it mightn't be the same whale, another whale has started selling Bitcoin, thousands of Bitcoin into Ethereum. And guess what the weight was set at for those? 676 as well. So, I mean, if that's not a huge indication for all those messages with the lost numbers, 676 was in it. And then another whale starts selling and they've set the weight at 676. I mean, that to me is very, very, very telling. So anyway, I went, just to kind of wrap up all this information, I made this post on X, and this might put it together a bit better, but it took me ages to understand this. But it clicked with me yesterday. But I said, my mind has been blown today. Yet again, I discovered how Qubic creator CfB hides the truth in plain sight. In my opinion, anyway, I should say that. He said in the past that he would sell 400,000 Bitcoin, but it was hard to know if he was joking or serious. I now think there is very strong evidence that links CfB to the ancient Bitcoin whale who has been selling crazy amounts of Bitcoin. I'll explain the details of the ancient Bitcoin whale below, but you can also search 80 Bitcoin OP return to find information of your own. And I recommend looking up this stuff by yourself because it makes more sense when you look it up by yourself. So these are the details. The beginning, 8 ancient Satoshi-era Bitcoin wallets awoke. These wallets were assumed to be abandoned. All these wallets contained exactly 10,000 Bitcoin, and they sold all their Bitcoin on the 4th of July, Independence Day. Important. Why would someone pick Independence Day to be the day that they start all this? We know CfB is interested in 1984 and freeing the world from the control of the Fed and the banking system. And if you guys just look into this guy is really, really interested. When he released Qubic, the first thing he wrote was the opening line from 1984. Now, he's either interested in destroying the world or freeing the world. I think he's interested in freeing the world from the control of the Fed and the banking system. And he's discussed taking down the banking system before. And then he released this project on the 4th of July. Was it picked, to signify a true break of freedom, true break away from the control of these guys. So true independent state. So then OP return. A few days later, before these wallets moved to Bitcoin, there were OP return messages sent to these wallets. Some of the OP return messages included the lost numbers 4, 8, 15, 16, 23, and 42. The other OP return messages discussed taking legal possession of these wallets. Since these messages appeared just before the Bitcoin was moved, it was clear that these messages were sent to preempt these wallets moving their Bitcoin. So the messages appeared first, and then the Bitcoin moved from the wallet. So the messages are preempting the Bitcoin moving. So whoever sent the messages was obviously the person who moved the Bitcoin and sold it. So hidden messages. So here's where I get into some things that people call me crazy for. The hidden meanings in this stuff is mind-blowing. And yes, I will discuss the number 9 here again. Interested in a refresher on how CfB is interested in number 9, check it out here. You can check out my previous video on gematria. I really, really dig into this in more detail, but basically just all I'm linking to there is this information about how CfB is really interested in the number 9 and all this stuff adds up to the number 9. If I remember, I'll leave a link at the end of this video to stuff about gematria so you can see that and it might make more sense then. But anyway, so remember those lost numbers? They were part of the popular TV show called Lost. In the show, the character Desmond had to enter those numbers into a system every 108 minutes. So using gematria, 108 equals 9, or using the digital root, 1 plus 0 plus 8 equals 9. If Desmond didn't enter these numbers, a global disaster would happen. The lost numbers are 4, 18, 15, 16, 23, and 42. Add them together and they equal 108, which actually I'm wrong here saying gematria equals 9. Using the digital root, 108 equals 9. So 1 plus 0 plus 8 equals 9. The lost numbers were sent to 3 out of the 8 Bitcoin addresses exactly 3 minutes after each other. So they actually sent them with 3-minute intervals between them. So 3 by 3 equals 9. So again, it was done very, very step by step, like it was a plan. The 8 wallets contained 10k Bitcoin. So 10k and plus the 8 equals 9. So you get the 108 again. The Bitcoin were moved on the 4th of July 2025, which is 4 plus 7, 25 equals 4 plus 7 plus 2 plus 5 equals 18, which is 1 plus 8 equals 9. Again, could be a coincidence, but it's a big coincidence, especially when you look at all the other gematria stuff with CfB's name and all that stuff. Since the lost numbers in the show and loss were used to prevent a global disaster from happening, it would make you think that the sender of the OP return messages were implying that these transactions are part of a disaster or preventing a disaster, one or the other. Maybe the collapse or the end of the financial system, or maybe this is all part of a 1984 type of disaster happening. So, maybe this is a good thing, maybe this is a really, really bad thing. And the beginning numbers of the fuck wallet balance, so the wallet that we said had FX, the FUCK, in here, have 108 at the start of it, which again, mind-boggling. So 108, or the number was worth, the value of this wallet is worth, Jesus Christ, 1 billion and 80 million. So it's like that, just incredible how much money's in that. So the value of it was that 108 was in it. Just that, another crazy coincidence. So we have the 108 in there again. The part that links all this to CfB, so the number 676 is of special significance to CfB and Qubic because it is the number of members in the quorum. Several transactions from these wallets included the number 676. I should note that there's lots of other transactions from these wallets that include the number 676, but the really important one that stood out to me the most is that all the transactions sent for the using the lost numbers had the fee manually set to 676. You can view those transactions here and you'll see the fee is manually set to 676 in the transaction section. And if you go to this post on X, you can see I've linked all the stuff in there. If you scroll to the inputs output section of those transactions, you'll see that the OP return has the lost numbers in them. You can see some other examples of Agent Whale wallets using the number 676 using the links below. So with some other Agent Whales ones that has 676 in it. And 676 isn't just some random number, it's very, very specific. So the conclusion, of course, it could all be a coincidence, but man, it would be an insane coincidence. It seems very likely to me that CfB left a clear message for interested people to discover. I know it is a lot of information above and in this video. Many of you will scan through it and think it's just random numbers and rubbish. But I challenge you to think about this and dive into it and research the details yourself, because when you understand all of this, it's going to blow your mind. And I really want to give a shout out and thank you to That's Not My Code and Satoshi CfB on X, because they discovered most of this information. It just took me ages to put it through in my head and for it to make sense, because it is complicated. And once I did, I've made it into this video. But those guys did all the hard work and the heavy lifting, so they deserve most of the credit for this. I'll take a little bit of credit for making the video, but other than that, for discovering all this information, it's their hard work, and then the people who wrote those articles that I was sharing as well, their hard work. Anyway, guys, if that doesn't blow your mind, and if it doesn't scare the shit out of you as well, think about this. There's, what did we say, 114,000 Bitcoin wallets, probably accounting for 10, maybe even 20% of all Bitcoin, are being targeted by the same thing. And it's going to happen at the end of September, or by the 5th of October, that they are going to try and claim possession of those wallets. And what does that mean for the whole crypto space? Like, if that actually happens, you might see 40% of all Bitcoin just being dumped in the market. I mean, it's mind-boggling. All Satoshi's crypto, most likely, is going to be claimed here. And it's probably Satoshi that's doing this, I think. And, I think Satoshi and CfB are the same person personally. But drop your thoughts, people. I know some of you will think this is crazy. Look into it more. I'm going to make a shorter video about this soon, that details it just in smaller bite sizes for people to digest, but I think it's one of the most interesting things to talk about that's going on in crypto right now. That's all I got for you today, guys. I'll see you all on the outside.